It's been over 2 years since the majority of the British public voted to leave the European Union. A historic vote in every way, which signalled that the people of the UK had had enough with the expansionism of the EU into every aspect of their lives, that they'd had enough of living under a foreign unelected leadership in Brussels, and that they'd very much like to once again live in an independent country that could decide its own bloody future. The nerve of these people, unbelievable. Yet, in all the time that has passed since these sentiments were expressed, the British government has done everything within its power to delay, water down and undermine the outcome of the referendum in a clear attempt to get to the point where the whole damn thing could be called into doubt or completely reversed. We're at a stage now where people need to show their hands, where voices need to emerge, and where people who have commented on the sidelines need to step up to the plate and back up what they've been saying from afar. Time is running out, chaps, so get your skates on. If Brexit isn't delivered, this country may as well call it a day. Even with all the troubles the UK faces in other areas, subjects that I've talked about extensively on this channel, you all know what they are, I think Brexit is the most important thing we need to deal with before anything else, because it represents a greater force. Everything we want to achieve can only be brought about if we get Brexit right. Sure, that's true on a policy front. I mean, if we want complete control over our laws, for example, we need to be out of the EU and all that other stuff. But it's also true on another level. Brexit is, at its core, a cry for nationalism. The British people, despite being told all their lives that British culture and identity revolves around empty liberal platitudes such as tolerance, openness and diversity,
diversity,
have realised somewhere along the line that actually that's all nonsense. Being British means something specific. It can't be applied to everyone or everything. Our existence isn't vague. Our history isn't something to forget. Our culture isn't a cheap hostel for anyone to sleep in. The British people have a clear identity, and they used to be allowed to show pride in that. They used to be free to be honest about who and what they are. But over time, after decades of internationalisation, the move towards globalist politics, and after heavy media propaganda reinforcing a shaky and unknowing concept of what this country should be.
Yep, we were multicultural long before curry and carnival. It's in our DNA. There's no such thing as a pure Brit.
Please stop flying that terrible flag everywhere.
People suppressed their true feelings and tried to ignore it all. That is, until Brexit came along. Finally, the silent majority were able to be honest once again. They could go to their local polling station and mark an X on a ballot paper for something they actually believed in. For years, they had cut themselves off from political involvement. They'd given up trying to influence change in their lives because they had been let down and betrayed time and time again. Labour, Conservatives, who gives a shit about any of them? But Brexit, well, it was a chance to be heard, to throw a hand grenade into Westminster, and to remind the airheads in London who really owns this nation. It was a statement that read, "We're British, we're proud, and we're not ashamed anymore. Let nobody convince you otherwise. Brexit is about two things: immigration and identity." The Leave voters think immigration is out of control, it's too high and it needs to be culled dramatically. Whenever you see a Brexit voter on TV say something like, "No, I actually voted for sovereignty, not because of immigration," realise that they are deflecting and simply trying to avoid being called a bigot by the left. They'll be called one anyway, of course, but there's still a sense of hesitation with being honest about their beliefs. Trust me, Brexit is about immigration, because too much immigration undermines the identity of British people and the country as a whole. When London, Birmingham and a host of other towns and cities across the nation are being demographically turned upside down, with the native white Brits becoming minorities, when working class neighbourhoods transform from tight-knit communities where everyone knows everyone into segregated foreign slums where people can't even speak English, and when thousands of young girls are systematically raped by outsiders and sacrificed by the state for the sake of multiculturalism, what else can these people do? Can you really blame them for thinking these things? For wanting to fight back against the establishment that has brought this horror into their lives? Of course not. Brexit may be about membership of the EU on the surface, but underneath, it's about everything that makes us who we are. There's a reason why the Remain side tend to focus on economics. Because they're trying to scare us into thinking that reclaiming our country and identity will come at an enormous personal cost, and that it's just not worth to even try. A good tactic for sure, considering it's the working class who are mostly against the EU and want to leave, and they aren't exactly eating at the Ivy every night, are they? No. They're struggling to make ends meet so they can raise their kids. They're working minimum wage jobs and breaking their backs on building sites, all the while seeing the places they grew up in changing beyond belief. Telling these people that they're wrong to feel the way they do, and furthermore that they're set to be decapitated financially, to me is a low tactic that must be pushed back against at every chance. There are more important things in life than economics, and we understand what those things are. When the Conservative government revealed the deal they'd been working on at Chequers recently, it's not an exaggeration to say that basically nobody was happy with it. A deal that essentially ties our arms behind our back and hands the EU a baseball bat. A pathetic appeasement where the UK will still be subjected to many EU rules and regulations, where the EU can impose policy changes onto us with automatic effect if they feel like it. Oh, what a great breakthrough. Whatever happened to the "no deal is better than a bad deal" slogan?
I am equally clear that no deal for Britain is better than a bad deal for Britain.
Because, my friends, this is a bad deal. Jacob Rees-Mogg has often warned against Britain becoming a vassal state of the EU, but we look closer to being one as every day passes by. As a result of this despicable appeasement of a deal, several high-ranking Conservatives resigned from their posts, most notably David Davis and Boris Johnson, and there have been press reports of other MPs writing letters of no confidence in Theresa May. And if 48 of these letters are received, a leadership election would be triggered within the party. This is clearly what needs to happen, and as quickly as possible. Theresa May is terrible in every possible way. One of the worst prime ministers this country has ever had. It's time for these so-called Conservatives to grow some bollocks and get her the hell out.
Execute Order 66.
It's also time for those who have been making noise on the fringes to put up or shut up. Yes, Jacob, I'm talking to you. You were all the rage in the media at the beginning of the year. You were saying all the right things about Brexit. You were taking the government, your own party, to task over the mistakes they were making during negotiations with the EU. And you very often nail the issues perfectly in regards to how the European Union isn't fit to tie our shoelaces. You always put forward the optimistic vision for life beyond Brexit, and your support, online especially, has skyrocketed due to your unflinching and direct approach to whatever is thrown at you. But what have you actually done lately, mate? You sound great, but are you ever planning on taking some damn action? You constantly criticise Theresa May's policy decisions, yet you can never bring yourself to drop your public support for her. Why would you support the captain of the ship as she steers it towards an iceberg? You need to throw her overboard and get yourself a new captain, sunshine. I'm not saying you need to be leader, you may not want to be after all, but at the very least you need to openly express that a change needs to be made. You need to openly admit to the media and the country that you have no confidence in Theresa May to continue in her role. And if you don't want to be leader yourself, which is fine, it's your decision after all, back someone else who does. Back them to the hilt. Because all I see in the Conservative Party right now is a bunch of people who are afraid to take the next and necessary step. Because they're either afraid of claiming responsibility for their own actions, or they're too shit scared of Jeremy bloody Corbyn.
You didn't just deal with Sinn Féin. You dealt with the IRA. 3 weeks after the Brighton bomb, in which the IRA had tried to destroy the democratically elected government of this country, you invited 2 convicted IRA terrorists to the House of Commons.
They were former prisoners who had come out of prison, women who had come out of prison, came to Parliament, actually the meeting had been arranged long before, to talk about prison conditions and rehabilitation of prisoners.
They were IRA.
Is there anything wrong with that since they had a spent conviction?
They had their organisation had just tried to blow up the British government.
There is a risk that a general election could be triggered on the back of a leadership challenge. And no, I don't want to see this commie sitting in 10 Downing Street either. But what's the game plan? Are the Conservatives just going to let Theresa May carry on in this disastrous fashion because they fear the possible alternative of a Corbyn election victory? What does that say about them? That they don't have the confidence in themselves to put up a decent fight against this loopy old crank? It's pathetic. I'll give you some advice for free. All you need is a pro-Brexit leader, and you'll be alright. Someone who doesn't crumble at pressure, doesn't duck debates, and actually has some sort of coherent vision and plan for what they're doing. If that person is Mog, great. If it's Boris Johnson, that's better than Theresa May. I don't actually care who it is, as long as they get Brexit right. Because once we're out of the EU properly, that's when we can focus on the other problems this country has. But until Brexit is done, those doors will remain locked for all of us. The longer this silence in the Conservative Party persists, the more likely it becomes that the harpies crying out for a second referendum will get their way. We know how this story plays out. It's happened in the EU many times. People vote the wrong way, then they're made to vote again until they make the correct choice. I have my problems with democracy in general, especially British democracy, but I don't think it's too much for me to say that if a second referendum is called, democracy in this country will be truly dead, and we won't be living in anything even remotely resembling a free nation. The EU and the globalist establishment will be free to impose whatever policy they desire onto Britain, and there'll be no peaceful way out. It's incredible to me that after such a monumental outcry from the British people in the referendum, that they have been treated like insects, stamped on and crushed every day, having their voices ignored and in many cases insulted by our elites. We've all heard the phrases. They didn't know what they were voting for. They're all uneducated. They're little Englanders. The disrespect is a disgrace. At a time where Europe is seeing a renaissance in nationalism, with Eurosceptic parties gaining power all over the continent, elected governments rejecting mass migration, turning ships away from ports, closing their borders and protecting their heritage and existence. Yet we, in Britain of all places, are seemingly doing the complete opposite and trying our best to eradicate our own nation. It's quite funny really, but in a gallows humour sort of way. This video has been a bit of a rant and I apologise for that, but sometimes you just need to vent. My closing message is this. Dear the Conservative Party, you are absolutely horrendous. The things you've done to this nation are unforgivable. The only reason why you're in power at this moment in time is because there's a complete gonk sitting opposite to you that people dislike more. You're in government to deliver Britain's exit from the EU. Failure to do this will result in the destruction of your party. Nobody will ever take anything you say with an ounce of seriousness ever again, and they'd be right to do so. But the one thing, the only thing you can do right now that will buy our patience for a tiny bit longer is actually deliver Brexit. Not a Brexit of appeasement like the Chequers deal, where we bend over a table and pull our pants down for Jean-Claude Juncker to drunkenly molest us, but a Brexit where we can begin to reclaim what is ours again. Where we as a nation can start to reverse the damage done to us for the last number of decades. Where our people can feel free to be proud of themselves once again and not be bullied into silence from your internationalist cronies. Those of you who are unhappy with Theresa May leading you, stand up and say it, will you? For crying out loud, what's taking you so long? Politics may be a long game, but we don't exactly have a long time to sort this out, do we? Reclaim a bit of dignity and do what needs to be done. If it triggers a general election, win it by having actual principles and an optimistic message. I know it's been a while since you've had any principles, but give it a go once in a while, you might like how it feels. And finally, please, for the love of God, Stop being scared of the left. They're going to call you nasty names no matter what. They'll never accept you, so stop trying. Do what you have to do and grow a spine. You useless womb ferrets. Yours sincerely, the Iconoclast. Europe is changing. Our ideals are being realised. Let's not get left behind, shall we? Thank you all very much for watching once again. Sorry this was a bit of a rant, but hey, I felt like ranting. If you'd like to support this channel, you can do so in a few ways. The first way is via PayPal. The link is down below. I want to thank everybody who's been so generous. Thank you so much. It's really... it warms the heart to see how much you care about this channel and the information and the messages that I give out. Brilliant stuff. Failing that, you can become a monthly patron of mine. $5 a month or more will get your name at the end of every single one of my videos as a credit, like these gorgeous, angelic, beautiful people right here. I tell you all every time, your support keeps my channel alive, keeps it strong, keeps it growing. Thank you all so much. Alright, that's it from me. See you soon. Cheerio.